Your straw is bobbing out of your can again. You press it back down. It bobs back up. The carbonation is pushing it out like a slow, fizzy ejector seat, and you are pressing it back down like this is somehow a fair fight. You've done this your whole life. Sip, bob, press, sip, bob, press. A tiny ritual of low-grade annoyance that nobody talks about because, well, what's the alternative? Turns out the alternative has been sitting on top of the can the entire time. There's a hole in your soda tab. A small oval gap. You've seen it thousands of times. Most people assume it's decorative, or maybe structural, something to do with stress distribution in the metal. A manufacturing footnote. And here's the thing that should bother you. It isn't any of those things. It has a specific, deliberate function that was designed into every aluminum can made since the late 1970s, never properly explained to anyone, and has been quietly waiting for you to notice for roughly 50 years. Today, we're figuring out why that hole exists, what it was actually designed to do, and the surprisingly corporate story of panic and legislative pressure that produced the can design you're holding right now. Before we get to the hole, we need to go back to a picnic in Ohio in 1959. This is before the pull tab existed in any form. Opening a canned beverage required a church key, a flat, pointed metal opener you'd punch into the top of the can twice, making two triangular holes. One to drink from, one to let air in so the liquid didn't pour like a reluctant drain. You carried this tool everywhere. You lost it constantly. Opening a beer at a cookout was a minor logistical expedition. An engineer named Ermal Fraze found himself at a picnic without one. The story, possibly embellished, definitely plausible, is that he used his car bumper to open his beer. Whether that's accurate or not, the frustration was real enough that Fraze went home and spent the next several years obsessing over a better design, eventually patenting the pull tab in 1963. The original pull tab was elegant. Pull a scored ring, a small blade punches through the top, and the can opens. The tab detaches cleanly and drops into your hand. It also dropped onto every beach, park, and swimming pool in America. By the mid-1970s, detached pull tabs were embedded in the feet of children across the country. Several U.S. states started drafting legislation to ban them outright. Hawaii passed a law in 1977 requiring cans to have non-detachable openers. Oregon and Vermont were experimenting with bottle deposit laws that made the whole disposable tab model look like a legal liability. Coca-Cola and Anheuser-Busch were watching this very closely, and nobody was watching more closely than Reynolds Metals. Here's what most people think when they see the hole in a soda tab. It saves material. You punch out a little oval of aluminum, multiply that across a few billion cans a year, and you've got meaningful savings. Makes sense. Sounds like something an engineer would do. But the hole in a standard tab removes maybe a third of a square centimeter of metal. The tab itself weighs about 1 gram. The material removed is a fraction of a fraction. Savings at scale are real, but they're a side effect, not a reason to put a hole in the design. Engineers don't add structural holes to save trace amounts of material. They add holes because the holes need to be there. The other common theory is that the hole helps with stress distribution, that it prevents the tab from snapping when you pull it. This sounds even more plausible and is even more wrong. The score line that ruptures when you open the can is designed around the lifting geometry of the tab's hinge, not the hole. If the hole were structural, it would be positioned near the hinge point. It isn't. It's in the middle, right where your finger goes. So, what is it actually for? Let's open the black box on the tab itself, because most people have never thought about how this thing works mechanically. The tab is a second-class lever. Think about opening a paint can with a flathead screwdriver. You wedge the tip under the lid, press down on the handle, and the lid pops up. The screwdriver's tip is the point of force, your hand is the input, and the rim of the can is the fulcrum. The tab works exactly the same way. The hinge at the back of the tab is the fulcrum. Your finger lifting the back end is the input. The nose of the tab, that small rounded nub pointing toward the center of the can, is the tip of the screwdriver, pressing down on the score line until it gives. What makes it clever is the mechanical advantage. Your finger exerts maybe a pound of pressure. The force delivered at the nose is several times that, concentrated into a small point directly over the scored aluminum. That's why it pops so easily. You're not strong, geometry is. Now here's what happens after you open the can. The tab rotates roughly 90 degrees from its starting position. It's still attached at the hinge, it stays on the can. If you keep rotating it further, past 90 degrees, all the way around toward the opening, the hole in the tab lands directly over the mouth of the can. That is not a coincidence. The hole is the exact diameter of a standard drinking straw. Slide your straw through the tab hole and down into the can. The tab grips it, holds it at a fixed angle. The carbonation pushes up, the tab pushes back, and your straw stays put for the entire drink. No bobbing, no pressing it back down, no Sisyphean sip ritual. This is what it's for. This is what it has always been for. And here's where this story becomes genuinely, almost offensively absurd. Nobody told us. Not one person in 50 years made this the default knowledge. There's no instruction on the can, no diagram, no 1980s television commercial where someone rotates their tab, winks at the camera, and drinks in peace. The feature exists on every single aluminum beverage can made since the stay-on tab was introduced. It has been pressed into the metal of hundreds of billions of cans. It has been in your hand at every fast food counter, every gas station, every vending machine you've ever used. And most adults alive right now have spent their entire lives pressing that straw back down, over and over, completely unaware. We live in an era where a 15-second video can teach a dance move to 40 million people overnight. But a physical feature stamped into one of the most mass-produced objects in human history, silent, patient, geometrically obvious once you see it, remained functionally invisible for half a century. Go ask 10 people right now if they know about this. The look on their faces will tell you everything. Now, why did Reynolds Metals design it this way, and why was it never explained? Reynolds Metals was one of the largest aluminum producers in the United States. They didn't just sell finished cans, they sold the aluminum sheet stock that can manufacturers bought by the mile. The detachable pull tab crisis was, for Reynolds, an existential threat. If state legislatures banned the pull tab can, or buried it under deposit laws and litter taxes, demand for aluminum beverage cans could collapse. That wasn't an inconvenience. That was the end of a major revenue stream. Daniel F. Kudzik, an engineer at Reynolds, filed a patent for the stay-on tab design in 1975. The solution was clean. Instead of the tab ditching, it hinged. It stayed on the can. It rotated back. The litter problem vanished. The legislative threat faded. Reynolds licensed the design broadly, and by the early 1980s, Ball Corporation, Crown Holdings, and virtually every major can manufacturer had adopted it. The detachable tab became a historical artifact. Kudzik's design is what you hold today. The straw holding function was almost certainly a noticed benefit rather than the primary invention. The hole existed because your finger needed somewhere to go, and someone realized that the geometry was right. But it was never aggressively marketed, never printed on the can, never made part of the product story. Reynolds solved their legal problem. The straw feature was a quiet bonus that somehow never made it to the instruction manual that, admittedly, nobody would have read anyway. So next time you crack open a can, you're not just opening a drink. You're holding a small artifact of 1970s corporate panic, a Hawaiian legislature's litter rage, one engineer's lever geometry, and a straw-gripping feature that the entire world collectively forgot to mention. The tab isn't decoration, the hole isn't structural, and you have been one simple rotation away from solving that bobbing straw problem for your entire life. There's a broader truth here, and it's a slightly unflattering one. We are surrounded by considered, deliberate design decisions that we glide past every single day. Not because we're incurious, but because nobody thought to point at them and say, look. Well, now you know. If you like finding the hidden logic in ordinary objects, the kind of thing that makes you feel like you've been handed a small, satisfying cheat code for reality, subscribe. And the next time someone's straw bobs up out of their can, show them the tab trick. You'll look like a genius. You've earned it.